was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Agoura Hills, California. The date was the 28th of March, 2004. The spring air was warm, the hills still green from winter rains, and the neighborhood of Old Agoura lay under a calm that only small suburban towns seemed to know. Somewhere among those winding streets and sunlit canyons, a man named Timothy Perryman stepped out of his home and vanished, leaving behind a mystery that has lasted for more than 2 decades. Timothy Verne Perryman was 53 years old when he disappeared. Friends and family described him as intelligent, kind, and habit-driven, a man who liked structure, order, and quiet. He lived with his wife and children in a comfortable home on Garden Oaks Court, a cul-de-sac bordered by oak trees and horse trails. To most people, his life seemed calm, even ordinary. But beneath that calm, Timothy was carrying burdens few could see. He had been a respected financial writer and editor, someone with deep knowledge of markets and numbers. His colleagues admired his precision and steady mind. Yet in the years leading up to his disappearance, things had started to unravel. He lost his job, a blow that hit hard for a man who valued routine and responsibility. The loss affected not just his finances but his sense of direction. Around the same time, he developed several health problems, kidney issues, heart trouble, and other complications that required regular medical care. Doctors were also testing him for prostate cancer. For someone who lived methodically, this uncertainty was crushing. Without his medication, his health could decline rapidly. Those close to him noticed changes. He was quieter, more introspective. Some said he seemed weighed down by invisible pressure, a man trying to hold on to his composure while the world beneath him shifted. His wife later told investigators that the two had a small argument that morning. Nothing serious, nothing out of the ordinary. She didn't think much of it. But later that afternoon, Timothy walked out of the house and never came back. He left on foot, without his wallet, credit cards, or cash. His car remained in the driveway. He didn't take his phone or any personal belongings, only his driver's license and a few family photos. Witnesses later recalled seeing him around 2 in the afternoon, walking along Daylight Drive, heading south alone, steady, not appearing lost or hurried. That was the last confirmed sighting. When night fell and Timothy hadn't returned, his family began to worry. At first, they thought he might have gone for a walk to clear his head. He loved hiking and knew the local trails like the back of his hand. But as the hours passed, worry turned to fear. He hadn't taken his medication. He hadn't contacted anyone. By the next morning, his family reported him missing. The search for Timothy began quickly. Deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department coordinated with local volunteers, hikers, and even Boy Scouts to comb through the surrounding hills. The Old Agoura area borders the Santa Monica Mountains, a vast, rugged landscape with steep canyons, dry brush, and hidden ravines. It was the kind of terrain Timothy knew well. He had hiked there countless times before. If anyone could navigate it, it would have been him. But as the days turned into weeks, no trace appeared, no footprints, no clothing, no remains, nothing. Authorities considered several possibilities. The first was that Timothy had simply walked away from his life, perhaps overwhelmed by his health and financial troubles. But that theory seemed unlikely. He was deeply attached to his family, and he'd left behind everything he would need to start over. The second theory was suicide, that he had gone into the mountains intending not to return. Yet without a note or a body, even that explanation offered no closure. The third, and perhaps most haunting possibility, was that something had happened to him in those hills, an accident, a fall, or something worse. The area where Timothy lived is deceptive. By day, it feels peaceful, open skies, winding trails, horses grazing on distant ranches. But beyond the neighborhoods, the land becomes wild. Thick brush, rattlesnakes, steep canyons that drop suddenly. People have gotten lost there before. The terrain can hide someone easily, especially if they're injured or ill. Search teams used helicopters, dogs, and infrared scans, but the wilderness yielded nothing. As the investigation continued, more details emerged. Timothy had been under emotional strain. Losing his job had left him feeling adrift. His health issues frightened him. Friends described him as introspective, a man who didn't easily share his pain. Yet there were no signs he had planned to disappear. His bank accounts remained untouched. His social security number was never used again. There were no confirmed sightings anywhere in the years that followed. 6 years later, in 2010, a startling discovery brought Timothy's name back into headlines. Hikers in a Malibu canyon came across a set of human remains. The location, rugged, remote, and roughly within hiking distance of Agoura Hills, matched the kind of terrain searchers had once scoured for Timothy. For a moment, his family dared to hope that they might finally get answers. But forensic testing revealed that the remains belonged to another missing person, a woman named Retrace Richardson. The news crushed the Perrymans. After 6 years of waiting, they were back to square one. Time passed, and attention faded. Missing person cases often do. Without new leads, even the most determined searches grow cold. But for Timothy's family, time brought no peace. The uncertainty, the not knowing, became its own kind of torment. Each time remains were found in nearby mountains, hope flickered, only to die with the next DNA test. Timothy Perryman is still listed as missing case MP3065 in the National Missing and Unidentified Person System. His description endures: 6'1", 200 pounds, with a red-purple birthmark covering part of his face, gold-framed glasses, and surgical scars behind his ear. Details that could still identify him today. No one knows what happened. Did he lose his way in the mountains, fall ill, or meet with something darker? Those who knew him doubt he left willingly. He was a husband, a father, a steady man facing quiet struggles. Agoura Hills has changed since 2004, but its canyons remain vast, silent, and heavy with memory. Hikers still wonder where he went, whether his story ended somewhere along the trails he once walked. For his family, closure never came, only endurance. They keep his name alive, waiting for the call, the clue, the moment that might finally end the silence. Timothy's story, though quiet, holds a deeper reflection about the fragility of everyday life. A man with no enemies, no criminal history, and no apparent reason to flee, gone without a trace. It reminds us that disappearance doesn't always come with warning signs or grand explanations. Sometimes, it happens in the most ordinary of moments: a walk on a sunny afternoon, a decision to step outside, and a path that leads somewhere no one can follow. In the years since, there have been occasional rumors, supposed sightings, hikers who thought they saw someone resembling him in nearby trails. None were ever confirmed. The landscape changes, memories fade, but the mystery remains suspended in time. Today, Timothy Perryman would be in his 70s. His children have grown, his home long since changed hands. Yet to those who remember him, he remains frozen at 53, captured in old photos, smiling, wearing glasses, a man whose life once seemed steady and sure. Somewhere between that last walk down Daylight Drive and the stillness of the hills beyond, his story stopped. Until then, his story endures in quiet persistence. His name remains on missing person registries, his face on digital archives, his family's hope still alive after all these years. For them, he is not just a name in a database. He was a husband, a father, a friend, and someone who, on one spring afternoon, walked into the California hills and disappeared. And maybe that's how his story should be told, not as a mystery of crime or conspiracy, but as a reminder of the thin line between presence and absence, between a life lived and a life lost to the unknown. Because sometimes, the most haunting stories are not about what we find but about what we never do.